Hi, I'm Anthony Originello, CEO of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources for BC and Yukon. We represent more than 8,000 members, and as the organization dedicated to advancing the HR profession through education, advocacy, awareness, professional development, as well as our recognized and impactful CPHR designation, we are proud to be a sponsor of this show. We have been the voice of the HR profession since 1942. Learn more about us at cphrbc.ca.
In this episode of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Dan Woynillowicz of Polaris Strategies. Dan, welcome.
Great to be here.
What's your job? What exactly do you do?
Yeah, so I really focus on the interface between policy and technology and energy and climate change. So looking at how do we produce and consume energy? What impacts does that have on climate change and our ability to mitigate climate change? And then that takes you into the realm of policy. What's the role of government in changing behavior, creating new market opportunities? And then what's the role of technology and innovation and the private sector in developing these solutions, bringing them to market and helping us to meet our energy needs, but in a way that reduces greenhouse gas emissions?
So do you work independently, or are you part of a team, or do you have your own team that supports what you're doing?
Yeah, so I work independently, but at the end of the day, with my clients, I tend to become somewhat embedded in their teams. And so I do work with a diversity of sectors, which is something that I really enjoy, is looking at the same problem or the same challenge from the vantage point of a renewable energy company or an EV charging company or the provincial government, a local government, a nonprofit think tank that's trying to engage with government and identify policy solutions. So I get to look at some of these challenges through the lens of those different perspectives from government, business, and civil society, always with an eye towards how can we make more progress faster.
So does that mean that you get embedded in some of these other companies for a period of time to really understand their organization, their products or services, and then how to move forward with the lens that you bring to whatever challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, exactly. It really is a matter of, in the case of working with the private sector, understanding what it is they're offering to the market in terms of the technology or service, understanding the market and some of the opportunities or challenges for them to participate in that market, and then looking at what's the policy framework that's either making it challenging or what policies could be developed or modified that would increase the opportunity, might reduce certain barriers to enable them to compete in that marketplace. So it really is understanding both the market and then how policy can shape or interact with that market, and then providing advice in terms of how they might go about making recommendations to government to get the policy framework they need to compete and hopefully to succeed.
So how much of your day is spent just thinking?
I would say a good 40 to 50% of my day is just consuming information. And that can be both, really trying to understand an emerging technology, or to understand what's happening not only in British Columbia or in Canada, but around the world in terms of policy innovation. What are different governments doing? How are they approaching it? I also spend a lot of time looking at public opinion research, trying to understand what are the different issues that people are concerned about. How do those map against different technologies and the solutions that they offer? How does that map onto the politics that really drives what kind of policy is developed? So a good chunk of my time is really just trying to stay abreast of technology and markets and policy and politics, so that I'm best able to provide advice to my clients as to how they can position within that world and in order to be successful.
So do you have to produce reports for your clients? Or is it just that you're making presentations?
It really varies. Sometimes it would be to produce a report looking at a specific opportunity, or sometimes it's just providing advice in terms of kind of the current landscape, who they might be competing with, or some of the different policy options that they could consider advocating to government to try to achieve. So it really varies from client to client and day by day. In the realm of politics and policy, you kind of have ebbs and flows in terms of when you've got a window of opportunity on a given issue. So it is a matter of just always trying to provide the best advice to help the client succeed.
Do you limit your work to X number of hours per day, 5 days a week, or can you never turn your brain off?
I definitely, I've got kids, and so I try to work a fairly conventional kind of 9 to 5 schedule. But the reality is, my work is also my passion. I'm very committed, in part because I have kids, to making sure that we've got a safe climate for them and a robust economy in the future that they can participate in. So, I do find that my evenings and weekends, I'm often still consuming a lot of news and doing a lot of reading to help stay abreast of things. So when I say that half my time is consuming information, that all doesn't necessarily happen in the workday, but happens over the course of the day and the evening and the weekend.
Well, you have quite a unique job. It's not the sort of job that you can say, well, when I entered university, like what you're doing today was exactly what you were aimed for. When you graduated from secondary school, what was your objective? Like, where were you going to go as far as your career was concerned?
Yeah, well, I'm from Alberta originally, and had a real affinity for the outdoors. Spent a lot of time hiking and rock climbing and mountain biking, and so knew I wanted to go into biology, and thought at the time that I might even like to do marine biology, so that I could end up here on the West Coast. I've ended up here on the West Coast, but never ended up doing marine biology. In university, I did end up doing an environmental science degree. And by the time I was graduating, I had come to recognize that on the environmental issues that I really cared about, it wasn't that we had a lack of science or understanding of those issues. It just wasn't translating into change in terms of policy or how different industries were behaving and performing. And so as I was graduating, I realized that I actually wanted to focus my efforts more in the realm of government and regulation and policy, and how we could actually use all of this scientific understanding that we had gained about the nature of different impacts and how to address them, to actually make sure we address them.
So where'd you go to work?
So I started at the Pembina Institute, which is a nonprofit energy think tank that was founded in Alberta. And so when I started, it was still quite small, and spent most of my time focusing on the oil and gas sector. And at the time, it was when the oil sands were really beginning to boom. And so focused on looking at how could we improve the policy and regulatory frameworks that that provide the rules for how that sector operates in the province. Everything from their environmental performance, air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, consumption of water, actually reclaiming the well sites or the mines at their end of life. So really focused initially on trying to get the right regulatory frameworks, and then over the course of my time at Pembina, was able to really broaden out into energy more broadly, into renewable energy and energy efficiency, and some of the innovative technologies that were coming out, and then looking more broadly at what are some of the policies that create space and opportunities for those. And so I spent nearly 12 years at the Pembina Institute, and then after that I went to what was then a new organization called Clean Energy Canada, which is a policy think tank based at Simon Fraser University. And I was policy director there, and really focusing on clean energy and climate solutions, and how to make sure that we had the right policy to enable and support those solutions.
And that's what brought you to British Columbia.
That's right. That's when I came to British Columbia and have stayed ever since. And it helps, of course, that British Columbia for a couple decades now has really been at the vanguard of government leadership on climate change, going back to Gordon Campbell and his Liberal government. And then through to the NDP today, there's been a real focus on addressing climate change and a high degree of public concern about that issue and support for being innovative in taking action. So it's been good to be working with governments who have been at the vanguard, but then also to be able to take the lessons learned and try to transplant those into other provinces and then to the federal government as well.
So when you take a look at your career, you continue to move forward. You've grown. Your network has grown. Your influence grows. What do you think has been the most important personal attribute that you possess that has allowed you to continue to grow in a way that benefits the work that you're doing, motivates change, and also provides the economic opportunity for you to be able to thrive here in British Columbia?
Yeah. I think part of it is always being curious, always being solutions oriented. So, over the course of my career, I've kind of encountered two different types of people. Where you've got a challenge that you're presented with, and it requires some kind of action, some kinds of change. You've got one type of person who is just really adept at listing off all of the reasons why change isn't possible. And so I call those the no because people. And they can itemize all the reasons why something is too hard or not practical or it's just not going to be possible. Whereas I also early in my career encountered some people, and I've really tried to emulate, who ask yes if. So it's oftentimes you're identifying some of the same barriers or challenges as the no because people, but you're looking at it from the perspective of what would need to change. Yes, if we change these things. And then you begin to unpack what are the different options to change those things? How might you actually do that? So just looking at it from that problem solving mindset, I think enables more progress to be made. It's just a different outlook. And then, the other thing is really to just always be both thinking broadly. So I'm a jack of all trades and an expert in none, but I read very widely and really then the ability to synthesize and connect the dots between different things as opposed to just, knowing a lot about just one thing, but being somewhat blind to how it interacts with other dimensions of society or other considerations. And then to also just have a broad network. So to always just be looking at opportunities to have a diversity of relationships across sectors, across interests, and across the country, and to always be open to their perspectives.
Well, the objective of this program is to give people who are entering their early days of their career a glimpse into careers like yours and hopefully be motivated by them. So thank you for sharing with us what it is that you do and the path that you followed to get to where you are now. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.